spiky. It's kind of terrifying. In some people's eyes, maybe kind of dumb as well, but let's dive in and see what we got here. Hey everyone, welcome back to Low Luxury, the channel where I show you what authentic luxury clothing and streetwear looks like. And this one is very much streetwear, but it's also footwear. We have got, oh my God, the box is kind of falling apart a little bit, but it's okay. I don't really care about the box. At least we've got something here. So this pair of shoes has been a grail of mine for some time, and some people think that these shoes are disgusting and ugly, and others, like me, find them like really weirdly alluring. They're like the chunkiest of the chunky chonkers, and you guys on this channel, you know I love my chonkers so much. So of course, these are by Off-White. And these are the ODSY-1000 sneakers. I think the 1000s are way better than the 2000, but that's a topic for another day. We are gonna check these things out and check out everything about them, see what makes them tick, see why I find them so cool. So let's get the fuck into it. But first, I've looked into it, and a very small percentage of you are actually subscribed to the channel. It's completely free. Just press that button and you will not regret it. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, this box isn't exactly in the best of shape. It's falling apart just a little bit, but it's all right. As you can see, it's like a light mint green, and it does have a bit of texture to it. Let's see if I can get that focus going. Yeah, so you can see a kind of dotted, like coated cardboard texture here. It's a sizable box. You can see my hand on it there, but it's not like the biggest of the big. It's not Balenciaga big or anything. And there's a few bits of print all over there. At the very bottom, you've got Off-White trademark symbol there, and that's quite small in the grand scheme of things, as you can see, but it's really nice and centered. In the top left, you get 2013 with a copyright symbol, and then slightly left of center, a bit above that 2013 to the right of it, shoebox in all caps with those classic Off-White quotation marks. And then off to the right, you get that kind of brand motto, defining the gray area between black and white as the color Off-White. With this print, anywhere you see it on Off-White stuff, make sure that those trademark symbols are fairly close to the words themselves. Make sure there's not an extra space there, because that's something that the fakes do a lot. And you'll see that this is a bit further down and further over. So this space after the word black is quite a bit less than the space above the words here. Both of the long sides are blank, as is the bottom here. One of the short sides does have some important stickers down here in the bottom right, so let's take a look at these. This is the one you're most likely going to see here. So you've got your barcode up top, and then you've got a model number, and you can look that model number up. I'd suggest you do, and make sure that your model comes up. If some other shoe or shirt or whatever shows up, that's a really bad sign. Under that, you get the model and color, so ODSY-1000 red, black, and then brand Off-White. And off to the right, a bit bigger, you get the size. So this is European size 43, which usually roughly translates to a US 10, although we'll see that's a little bit different in this case. And then to the left of that, we've got another sticker here, but it would be my guess that this came from the retailer, so yours may well have a different sticker or no sticker at all here, but it's always good to make sure that the various pieces of information do match up here. The other short side has some really good info here. So we do have this kind of fold over piece, but we'll talk about that in a sec. But under that, off in the left corner, we have the official shoebox print, I guess. So in big orange letters, you've got SB, and then under it centered Off-White trademark official shoebox. And then going up along the right vertically, you've got 4 SBs, and again, the official shoebox print. And now let's talk about this card here. So it's white on the back, but the front is the same kind of mint green as the box itself, as you can see. And starting in the top left, you have those classic Off-White diagonal bars here, and then the brand name. And then it gets into a bunch of motto stuff. So there's like 4 separate paragraphs here. To the right of that, you get that model number, and that should match the sticker we looked at earlier. Model name, color, again, these should match up again with whatever's inside your box. And then down here, you get this sizing info, and this is where it gets interesting. So remember how I said that usually a European 43 is a US size 10? Well, for whatever reason here, they call it a 9.5. Perhaps they fit a bit tight. I guess that's something we'll have to find out. And then finally, off to the right, you get a little wireframe drawing of the shoes themselves. It's just an outline, but that is what it should look like, and it kind of has the laces, you can see, kind of spurting out a little bit. That's an interesting touch there. All right, and now we get to have some fun and open this box up. Let's do it. Boom, and there you go. So there are our shoes. Obviously, this one came from stock X, but the info matches up as it should. The stock paper that's in here, as you can see, is that mint green color, and all over it, it says Off-White trademark, and then all caps pattern and quotation marks. Pretty much all Off-White shoes should have this type of stock paper in it. All right, let's take these bad boys out. Ooh, spiky. So there you have it, an authentic Off-White Odyssey 1000. As you can see, it's a very aggressive silhouette. It's kind of terrifying. In some people's eyes, maybe kind of dumb as well, but let's dive in and see what we got here. Of course, we have our zip tie. In this case, it's kind of like an orange-red. And the text on that is kind of like pixelated in white, and it's 2013 copyright, zip tie in quotations, and then Off-White trademark. On top of that, our shoelaces should say shoelaces in quotation marks. But let's talk about the silhouette itself, starting with the upper here. So the real standout element of branding is, of course, this kind of like arrow X that is a trademark of the brand. And this really sits on top of everything. You can see it's very cleanly stitched in. Those stitches are really nice, really straight, nothing wonky at all. And things like this step right here on top of this piece of rubber, that's a tough thing to do and get right. So definitely look out for little details like that with the craftsmanship. Then you have this like red-orange mesh here that's quite tight. And these lines that are going through underneath are actually these blue lace closures that you see right here. So they go under here, and then you can see them through the mesh. And you also get this kind of like zigzag stitching going underneath as well. Take a look at where the ends of these arrows end up. So this one ends up really completely flush with the midsole, whereas this one ends up right there with a little more space. This, I believe, is like a leather right here, maybe a suede, but this is definitely a really smooth suede right here. This is like a see-through blue piece, and there's some nice molding here. Like it's got a noticeable rim around the edges, like you can feel that sticking out. And then this cutout falls right there before getting to 4 more cutouts right here that get progressively smaller as you get to the counter of the shoe at the back. In the front, you have a few discrete elements here. So there is where that arrow ends, just kind of like at the center mark of those laces here. And then this is a piece of leather. You can really see that texture there to it, and that is in gray. And again, the stitching is really clean, and there's like no material left over after those stitches. It's really tight. You get 5 perforations here before we end up on the other side of the shoe, where you don't get that X, but instead you get this black piece of suede going over here with this little like blue wavy zigzaggy boy stitching across the top. This right here, as you can see, is mesh, but it actually has a really interesting element that doesn't show up in pictures. So you see this light blue zigzag stitch going over here? Well, that's actually separating some coating. So at the top, it's just the mesh, it's bare. But after this stitching below it, the mesh is kind of covered in like a clear plastic coating. It's really weird, and it's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's plasticky. You can't feel the mesh anymore, whereas up here, you can feel the texture of that webbing. At the back of the shoe, you get this kind of like pull tab, and that has that same pattern as like your classic Off-White belts. And underneath that, you can see it's actually red leather, the same kind of type of leather as the gray at the front. Again, it has that texture to it. Underneath the laces, you again have that kind of white mesh going around, and the tongue is like a polyester, a very kind of like track pants feeling polyester, and then you get this logo badge, really, really nice and beautiful in rubber. And the inside of the tongue is left blank. It kind of reminds me of some of Off-White's collaborations with Nike. Now let's look at that midsole and sole unit here. So as you can see, going around the side, this is like a white rubber, and you've got all these diagonal lines going through, really in line with that Off-White branding that we've seen with those diagonal bars, right? this has a really interesting shape to it from the midsole to the sole. So this kind of indents here, you can see the shadows there where my finger goes in. And then there's this kind of like molding line here that takes a lot of interesting dips and things. So really compare that and make sure that those shapes are there. We follow this around, and again, this is moving up and down here, that molding line, until we get to this portion where you've got some stitches that come in. And again, this is a pretty big indentation here. You can see that in the coloring and the shadows as well. And again, this molding line is continuing to curve and warp around. And then right here, pressed into it, you have the model name, OFF-WHITE 1000. Look at the placement of that. It's kind of closer to the upper than it is to this molding line here. Around the front of the shoe, you get these arrows, so one point is here, and then it goes around the shoe to right there. And then on the inside of the shoe, it's much the same, as you can see here. At the back of the shoe, you actually get a really cool shape here. It's kind of asymmetrical. And then pressed in, you've got this kind of ruler. Really, really weird, but I find it super interesting. And now finally, let's look at the bottom of the sole here. So as you can see, you've got all of these teeth. You can take a look at those patterns, but you can see they're actually pointing towards the back of the shoe. So if we look at it from the side here, you can see they're not spikes coming straight down, they're going diagonally backwards. And even around here, these ones are kind of coming out a bit as well. Over here, you get this kind of arrow X pressed into the rubber. And then you get this badge in the middle where you've got the 2013 and the motto right here. But probably the most important thing on this badge is the model name itself, because I've noticed on a lot of the fakes, it doesn't say Odyssey, O-D-S-Y, it says like Dudesy. They put 2 D's. So definitely take a look out for that and make sure it actually says O-D-S-Y. Finally, let's take a look inside the shoe. So pulling this tongue out, that's where you get the size here. So on blue, printed in black, you've got the European size in quotation marks. It's really big and bold. And then underneath that, in all caps, made in Italy. And the insert of the shoe is yellow. And down at the bottom, at the heel right here, you get a printed black Arrow X logo. The bottom of that insert is like a gray. And then right here, it says it looks like SPAC. And then underneath that insert in the footbed, you can see it's just like a textured white, and it's stitched to the sidewalls in blue stitches. So now that we have checked all of that out, let's try these shoes on to see how they feel and see how they fit. Man, these shoes are really interesting. Let's talk about that sizing first, because I found that to be really interesting. So as you saw, they consider a European size 43 to be equivalent to a US size 9.5, which is the first time I've ever seen that. Every other time it's always been a 10. And after wearing them, I guess I do get it. The footbed is pretty tight. Like, my toes go right to the very ends of the shoe, and usually in a size 43 or a US size 10, that would not be the case. I'd have a little bit more breathing room. So if you're in between sizes, like you usually wear a half size, I would consider sizing up rather than sizing down. I think that would work out better for you. As for the feel, they're actually really nice. They're comfortable to wear. I wish there was a little bit more cushioning in that footbed. It feels a little bit hard on my feet, but around my ankles is super, super soft and nice. I really like the way the kind of like spikes feel to walk on. That's really cool. The size of that sole is massive. You can really feel it while wearing them. The size of the sole reminds me very much of a Balenciaga Triple S, but the weight is much, much, much lighter. Like the Triple S, it feels like walking around with cinder blocks on your feet. These are much easier to kind of take your steps in. So, you know, I kind of like the Triple S concreteness, but not for everything. So this is a nice, nice option to have, and I'm really vibing with them. So that's great. I'm into it. So that is what a real pair of Off-White Odyssey 1000 sneakers looks like. Take a look at the other video on screen here, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.